I never thought I'd be the one holding the match to burn it all down. But there I was, finger hovering over the send button. The email that would unleash hell on the empire I'd helped build. My name is Lillian Harper, and for 12 years, I'd slaved in the glass towers of Wall Street, crunching numbers for Apex Financial, the kind of firm that made billionaires out of crooks and left the rest of us picking up the shards. That night, as rain lashed against my Tribeca loft window like God's own judgment, I hit send, and just like that, the betrayal I'd swallowed for too long came vomiting back up. It started with a whisper in the server room. Back in 18, when I was still the wide-eyed quant analyst fresh out of Wharton, convinced that merit meant something in this game. I'd stumbled on it during a late-night audit, lines of code in our proprietary trading algorithm that didn't add up, siphoning microseconds off high-frequency trades to skim pennies from millions of transactions. Pocket change to you and me, but it ballooned into 9 figures. Funneled straight into offshore accounts linked to none other than Victor Kane, our Golden Boy CEO. Vic, with his shark-tooth smile and Hamptons tan, the man who'd personally recruited me at a cocktail party in the Hamptons, toasting to family over chilled view of Clickwat. "Lillian, you're the sharpest knife in the drawer," he'd said, his hand lingering a beat too long on my elbow. I'd blushed, believed him, and signed on the dotted line. But that code? It was Vic's dirty little secret, buried under layers of encryption I'd cracked because insomnia and Red Bull make for a hell of a debugger. I confronted him the next morning in his corner office, the one with the Rothko knockoff and a view that screamed, "I own this city." He didn't even blink. Just leaned back in his Eames chair, steepled his fingers, and said, "Kid, you think you're the first to peek behind the curtain? This is how the world works. We feed the beast, or the beast eats us." Then he slid a folder across the desk, my promotion papers, a fat bonus, and a non-disclosure agreement thicker than a phone book. "Sign it, Lillian, or find yourself auditing gas stations in Jersey." I signed. God help me, I signed. Because I was 28, buried in student loans, and the alternative was watching my dreams evaporate like morning fog off the Hudson. So I became his ghost in the machine, tweaking the algo just enough to keep the skim undetectable, covering tracks while he jetted off to Davos, schmoozing senators and hedge fund titans. Vic was a chameleon, flipping from visionary philanthropist at galas, donating millions to inner-city schools, the hypocrisy dripping like cheap cologne, to cutthroat operator in closed-door meetings, where he'd greenlight layoffs that gutted families just to juice quarterly earnings. He'd pat my back in public, call me his secret weapon, but behind closed doors, it was "Fix this mess, Lil, or you're out." And every time I fixed it, a piece of me chipped away, until I was hollow as the marble lobby downstairs. The real knife twist came 2 years in, when the feds started sniffing around after a whistleblower from a rival firm spilled about similar schemes. Vic needed a fall guy, someone to dangle as bait while he and his inner circle, that snake oil trio, CFO Elena Vasquez, with her Ice Queen poise and ledger-fudging wizardry, and the twins, Marcus and Mia Locke, brother-sister lawyers who drafted the loopholes tighter than a noose, scattered the real loot. That's when he pinned it on me. "Lillian's the one who coded it," he told the board, his voice all regretful thunder. "She came to me panicked, said she'd gone rogue to hit her targets. I covered for her because, well, she's like a daughter to me." Daughter. The word still burns like battery acid. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. Elena testified I'd begged her for creative accounting tips over margaritas at some bullshit team-building retreat in Napa. The Locks produced emails forged, But who could prove it? Showing me angling for that bonus. I got slapped with a felony charge for securities fraud, house arrest in my shoebox apartment, and a plea deal that kept me out of prison but nuked my career. No more Bloomberg terminals for Lil, just a barista gig at a Soho cafe. Steaming lattes for the same Wall Street wolves who now averted their eyes. Vic? He got a slap on the wrist, a fine that didn't dent his yacht fund, and a promotion to industry consultant, raking in speaking fees at conferences where he preached ethical capitalism to packed rooms of suckers. But the betrayal ran deeper than boardroom BS.
See,
Vic wasn't just my boss. He was the man who'd promised my dying father, bedridden in that godforsaken hospice in Queens, that I'd be taken care of.
Dad.
A beat cop who'd busted his ass for 30 years on the NYPD. Only to croak from lung cancer courtesy of some 9/11 dust cleanup they never compensated. Vic's solid. Kiddo. He'd wheezed on his last breath.
Clutching my hand.
He'll look out for you. Vic had been there, all teary-eyed, swearing on a stack of Bibles. And I believed it. Because what else do you cling to when the world's kicking you in the teeth? For 5 years. I simmered. Worked odd jobs, freelance data entry, tutoring SAT kids in Park Slope, while piecing together the puzzle in stolen moments. I hacked back in through old VPN ghosts, traced the money trails to Cayman shells and Swiss vaults. Learned Elena had been Vic's lover since the 90s. The Locks' college poker buddies who'd laundered his first scam out of Stanford. And me, just the patsy, the ambitious girl from the wrong side of the tracks. Perfect for the sacrificial altar. The rage built slow, like pressure in a fault line, until it cracked me open. That's when I started planning. Not some cartoon villain plot, no exploding briefcases or car chases through Midtown.
Nah.
This was Wall Street revenge, cold, calculated, and aimed right at their golden parachutes. It began with anonymous tips to the SEC, drip-fed like Chinese water torture. First, a leaked memo on Apex's risk management that was really a blueprint for more schemes. Vic's team squirmed, issued denials, but the stock dipped 2 points. Then, I doxed Elena's affair with a married senator. Nothing graphic. Just enough blurry photos from a surveillance cam I'd borrowed from a PI buddy to tank her credibility when the ethics committee came calling. The Locks? I flooded their inboxes with IRS flags on undeclared assets, watching Marcus sweat through a deposition where he invoked the fifth like it was a prayer. But Vic, he was the prize. I saved him for last, building the case like a house of cards around his empire. By 23, Apex was hemorrhaging investors, whispers of insider sabotage floating like toxic fog. Vic called me out of the blue one night, voice smooth as aged bourbon.
Lil.
Honey, this has to stop. Whatever grudge you're nursing, let's talk. Dinner at Le Bernardin? My treat. I almost laughed. Instead, I played along, showed up in a thrift store sheath that hugged my scars, sat across from him as he spun tales of redemption, how he'd always regretted throwing me under the bus. It was business, not personal, he said, reaching for my hand. I let him, just long enough to slip a USB drive into his jacket pocket, loaded with the motherlode, unredacted server logs, wire transfers, even an audio clip of him bragging to Elena about framing the bitch to save our asses. That was 6 months ago. Tonight, as the clock ticked past midnight, I compiled it all into one devastating packet, terabytes of proof, routed through a dozen proxies to land in the inboxes of every major regulator from the SEC to the DOJ, C-Seat to the Times, Wall Street Journal, and a pod of hungry investigative journalists. The subject line? Apex Financial. The Kane Conspiracy. Full disclosure. My finger trembled. Not from fear, but from the electric thrill of it. This wasn't just payback. It was absolution. For Dad. For the girl I'd buried under Vic's lies.
Send.
The whoosh echoed like a gunshot in my empty loft. I poured a glass of the cheap Merlot I'd been nursing, watched the rain streak the windows, and waited for the world to catch fire. The fallout hit like a nor'easter, whipping Wall Street into a frenzy by dawn. My phone, burner, of course, lit up with alerts. CNBC blaring. Apex in crisis. CEO Kane faces fraud probe. Stock plunging 47% in pre-market. Traders scrambling like rats off a sinking ship. I tuned into the local NPR affiliate while brewing coffee. The host's voice cracking with that faux grave tone they reserve for market Armageddon. Sources say the leaks point to a decade-long scheme, with Kane allegedly using a junior analyst as a scapegoat. That analyst? Lillian Harper, acquitted in a related case 5 years back. Is this vigilante justice? Or the whistleblower's revenge? Vigilante. The word hung in the air, bitter as oversteeped tea. Part of me wanted to scream into the void. Yeah, it's revenge. And it tastes like justice on a saltine. But I kept my head down, slipped into the city under a Mets cap and oversized shades, blending with the commuter hordes funneling into the one train. By the time I clocked in at the cafe, apron tied tight over yesterday's blouse, the tip line was buzzing. Regulars, those rumpled ad execs and grad students, shot me sidelong glances, like they half expected me to sprout fangs and confess over a quart-a-due. Elena was the first domino. Her mugshot hit the feeds by noon, handcuffs glinting under flashbulbs outside her Upper East Side brownstone. Hair mussed, that perpetual sneer twisted into something feral. No comment, she spat at the reporters. But the damage was done. The senator dumped her faster than a bad trade, and the FEC launched an inquiry into her consulting fees, code for bribes. I watched from behind the espresso machine as a customer scrolled the story, muttering, "Bitch had it coming."
Did she?
Elena wasn't pure evil. She'd clawed her way up from a barrio in LA. Single mom raising 2 kids on ramen and resolve. But she'd chosen Vic's side, fudged the books that ruined retirees' nests, laughed when they canned me. Loyalty's a two-way street, and she'd jaywalked it without a glance back. The Locks fared worse, their twin act unraveling like a cheap suit. Marcus got nabbed at JFK, en route to a vacation in Aruba with a suitcase full of undeclared cash. My IRS tip had ripened just right. Mia tried to flip, cutting a deal with the feds to testify against Vic in exchange for immunity. But not before I leaked her emails plotting to disappear, incriminating files in a shredder bonfire at their firm's retreat. The headline screamed legal dynasty in tatters, and their practice folded overnight. Clients bolting like spooked horses. I almost felt bad for Mia. She confided in me once, over late-night takeout, about the abortion she'd had in law school. How Vic had paid for it, but held it over her like a guillotine. He owns us all. Lil, she'd whispered. Yeah.
Well.
Not anymore. Vic. Though, he was a cockroach, skittering through the cracks. By evening, he'd lawyered up with a dream team that made the Locks look like public defenders. Holed up in his Montauk estate issuing statements through a PR flak. These allegations are baseless smears from a disgruntled ex-employee with a vendetta. Apex remains committed to transparency. Bullshit. But the kind that buys time. I knew he'd counterpunch. Vic always did. Sure enough, my real phone rang at 8 p.m., untraceable number. but I knew that gravelly timbre anywhere. Lillian, he drawled, like we were old poker buddies. You've made quite the splash. Care to explain why you're trying to drown us all? I was pacing my loft. The city lights a blurry smear beyond the glass. Explain? Vic. You want explanations. Start with why you let me rot while you sailed yachts on my blood money. A pause. Then that chuckle. Low and loaded.
Ah.
The betrayal card. Look,
Kid.
I did what I had to. You were green. Impulsive, hell. You coded that skim yourself. Remember? I could have let the wolves eat you alive.
But I pulled strings for that plea.
You're welcome. Rage boiled up. Hot and viscous. Pulled strings? You framed me. Forged docs. Coached Elena to perjure. Business.
Lil.
Always business. His voice sharpened, the mask slipping. But this? Torpedoing the firm that put food on your table? That's personal. And personal gets messy. I've got dirt on you too, those freelance gigs? Skirting tax laws. That PI you hired? Off books. Illegal surveillance. One call to my friends at Justice. And you're back in cuffs. The threat landed like a sucker punch. But I'd anticipated it. Try it,
Vic.
see how deep my files go. I've got you on tape. Admitting the frame job. Elena's spilling already, Mia, too. If she wants her deal to stick. Silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then, softer. What do you want?
Money?
A board seat? Name it. And we end this quietly. I laughed. Sharp and hollow. I want you to feel what I felt.
Exposed.
Alone. The regulators knocking while your world's in freefall. That's the price. He sighed. Theatrical. You're playing with fire.
Girl. But fine.
Truce dinner? Neutral ground. Gramercy Tavern. Tomorrow. Bring your terms. I hung up, heart hammering. Truce? With Vic Kane? It was a trap. Wrapped in velvet. But I needed to see his face when the noose tightened. Sleep evaded me that night. Ghosts of Dad's hospital room flickering in the dark, his frail hand in mine. Vic's crocodile tears. By morning, the headlines had escalated. Whistleblower or wrecking ball. Harper's revenge rocks finance world. Pundits on Fox debated if I was hero or harpy. CNN running segments on the cost of corporate silence. Split sides. Just like I'd hoped, no clean villains. Just a messy tapestry of greed and grudge. I showed up at Gramercy early, nursing a seltzer at the bar, scanning for tails. Vic arrived fashionably late, flanked by two suits who peeled off to a corner booth security, probably ex-FBI with NDAs tattooed on their souls. He slid into the seat opposite, looking every inch the fallen king, salt and pepper stubble, eyes bloodshot behind aviators. Lil, he said, signaling the waiter for scotch. You look good. Tired, but good. Cut the charm.
Vic.
We're not family anymore. He leaned in, voice a conspirator's hush. Then let's talk brass tacks. Drop the leaks. I bury your dirt. We both walk away legends. You the crusader who reformed Apex from the inside. Me the guy who owned his mistakes. I slid a napkin across. Scribbled. Audition tape? He frowned, then paled as realization dawned. The USB from his pocket. The one I'd pawned back, now in SEC hands. The audio queued up for his arraignment. You bitch, he whispered. But there was admiration in it. Twisted as barbed wire. The regulators knocked that afternoon. Federal agents swarming Apex HQ like locusts, hauling servers and shredding PR spin. Vic's arrest played on loop. Him in cuffs. Stone-faced. As Elena and the Locks were paraded out separately, their empires reduced to mugshots. I watched from a dive bar in the village, anonymous amid the after-work crowd, a twisted smile cracking my face. Revenge tasted sweet, but it left a copper tang. Was this victory? Or just another layer of the scam? The trials turned Manhattan into a circus. Tents pitched outside the federal courthouse on Foley Square, where cable news vultures circled for soundbites. I testified, under immunity, my voice steady as I unpacked the Algo's guts, the ghost trades, the offshore siphons, Vic's midnight directives scrawled in encrypted chats. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale ambition, packed with reporters sketching my profile like I was some folk hero out of a Scorsese flick. But the eyes on me? They weren't all adoring. Vic's fans, those old-school traders who'd made fortunes on his coattails, glared daggers, muttering traitor under their breaths when the judge wasn't looking. Elena's cross-exam was a bloodbath. Her lawyer, a slick Jersey shark, painted her as the victim. MS. Vasquez rose from poverty, only to be coerced by Mr. Kane's toxic masculinity. She took the stand in a navy sheath, tears glistening like strategic dew, admitting to the ledgers but blaming Vic's iron grip. The jury ate it up. Half the panel were women who'd nodded along to her sob story of glass ceilings and gaslighting.
Me?
I got grilled on why I'd stayed silent so long. Fear, I said flatly. And loyalty. Vic was like a father to me. The prosecutor winced. Vic smirked from the defense table, mouthing daughter with that poisonous grin. The Locks flipped harder than flapjacks at a diner. Marcus copped to conspiracy, ratting out Vic's Cayman setups in exchange for a reduced sentence, 5 years. Probation if he sang sweet. Mia went theatrical. Her direct exam a monologue on moral injury, how Vic's shadow had warped her ethics since their Stanford days. She produced diaries, real or forged. Who knew? Detailing his manipulations. The poker games where he'd clean them out and dangle favors like crumbs. The twist? She implicated me too, claiming I'd known about the skim from day one. Even suggested tweaks to optimize it. Gaslighting. Pure and simple, but it's so doubt. Jurors whispered during recesses. Was Harper in on it? Playing both sides? Vic's defense was a masterclass in deflection. He took the stand in a bespoke suit, voice booming like a revival preacher, spinning a yarn of systemic pressures in finance, a Shark Tank where you swim or sink. He admitted oversights, sure, but framed the skim as innovative risk-sharing, not fraud. And me? Lillian was brilliant, but ambitious to a fault. She pushed boundaries I couldn't rein in. When things heated up, she panicked, coded the cover-up herself. I protected her. Out of paternal affection. Paternal. There it was again. That gut punch word. Twisting the knife Dad's ghost had left lodged in my ribs. His lawyer paraded character witnesses, senators, CEOs, even a rabbi from his philanthropy board, all swearing Vic was the real deal. A family man who'd lost his way but deserved grace. The media frenzy peaked with op-eds splitting like fault lines. The Guardian hailed me as the avenging angel of Wall Street, a Me Too for markets. Breitbart branded me corporate terrorist, a scorned woman torching lives for spite. Twitter, X, whatever, erupted in threads, Harper avenge, hero or harpy. Feminists rallied for my empowerment arc, while bro podcasters dissected my daddy issues with Freudian glee. No one was clean, Everyone bled bias. Even I caught myself second-guessing in the mirror each morning, the woman staring back gaunt and graying at the temples. Had I gone too far? Elena's kids, those wide-eyed boys in private school uniforms, now yanked to public, haunted my dreams. The Locks firm? Dozens of innocents, jobless. Resumes piling up like autumn leaves. Crescendo hit during Vic's closing, when his lawyer dropped the bomb, a video deposition from my old therapist, subpoenaed and sealed until now. MS. Harper expressed resentment toward authority figures. The shrink droned, rooted in paternal abandonment. She described fantasies of burning it all down after her father's death. The courtroom gasped. I froze, bile rising. That session, 6 years back, post-Dad's funeral, when grief had me unraveling over chamomile tea. Confidential. My ass, Vic's tentacles ran deep, buying silence and spilling secrets. The prosecutor objected, but the judge let it play, jury eyes narrowing on me like I'd sprouted horns. Outside, post-testimony, a scrum of mics and lenses swarmed. Lillian, is it true? Did you fabricate evidence out of spite? I shoved through. No comment, heart pounding as I ducked into a black car, courtesy of the feds. My reluctant guardians. That night, alone in a safe house upstate, the Hudson murmuring beyond the pines. I cracked, paced the creaky floors, replaying Vic's testimony, paternal affection.
Lies.
All of it, but laced with enough truth to poison the well. I'd covered for him once. Yes, tweaked that code, not just for the bonus, but because he'd dangled Dad's legacy, promised to fund a scholarship in his name. And when the Fed circled, I'd hesitated, deleted a log or two, buying time. Not innocence, but complicity. The realization hit like vertigo. I wasn't the avenger. I was the mirror, reflecting his greed back at him. Still, I doubled down. Final witness, a forensic accountant I'd ghost recruited, testifying to the skim's true scale, $250 million. Laundered through Apex's charity arm that built Vic's vanity schools while shorting the communities they served. The numbers landed like haymakers. Jury faces hardening. Vic's team scrambled, filing motions for mistrial. But the judge, a no-nonsense Brooklynite with a Brooklyn accent, slammed them down. Closing arguments framed the divide, prosecution's justice for the forgotten, defenses which hunt by a vengeful insider. As the jury filed out, Vic caught my eye across the aisle. His gaze not hate, but pity. Poor Lil, it said. You think this ends it? Deliberations dragged 3 days. The city holding its breath. I holed up in the safe house, chain-smoking menthols on the porch, the autumn chill seeping into my bones. Calls from old colleagues, sympathy from some, venom from others. You destroyed us. Harper, one growled. Vic gave you everything. Everything except truth. I wanted to spit back. On day 4, verdict dropped. Vic guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, obstruction. 20 years. No parole. Elena and Marcus, 10 apiece. Mia walked with time served, her flip buying freedom. Cheers erupted in the hall, but I slipped out the side door, the weight not lifting but shifting, settling heavier in my chest. Reporters ambushed me blocks away, under the shadow of the Woolworth building. Lillian, vindicated at last. I paused, rain starting to spit from thunderheads, and met the lens. Vindication? This isn't a movie. It's just accountability. Finally. But as I walked away, the doubt gnawed. Whose accountability? Mine too? The gavel's echo faded. But the ripples? They tsunamied through my life, washing up wreckage I never saw coming. Apex dissolved in a fire sale, assets carved up by vulture funds. Employees scattered to the winds like confetti from a popped balloon. I got a settlement, 7 figures after the lawyers skimmed their cut, enough to pay off debts and vanish if I wanted. But vanishing wasn't the plan, reckoning was. With the trials wrapped, I turned the lens inward, chasing loose ends Vic's empire had frayed. First stop, Dad's old precinct in Queens. A squat brick bunker smelling of burnt coffee and regret. Detective Ruiz, grizzled and gold-shielded, met me in an interrogation room that hadn't changed since the 90s, peeling paint, one-way mirror fogged with ghosts. Harper, he grunted, sliding a file across scarred formica. Your pop was onto Kane years back. Narcotics bust gone sideways, Kane's shell company laundering for the cartel. Your dad pulled the thread, but brass shut it down. Political heat, they said. My stomach dropped. Dad's retirement bonus, that envelope of cash he'd hidden in the cookie jar? Dirty money to buy our silence. Vic's stewing, Ruiz confirmed, a gesture of goodwill after Dad's complaints got too loud. Cancer came later, but the stress? It accelerated the end. I'd borne the blame for a lie bigger than I knew, covering not just code, but a cop's coerced complicity. Ruiz leaned back, chair creaking. Your old man wanted you out of that snake pit.
Lil.
Told me before he went. Keep an eye on my girl. Kane played you both. I nodded, throat tight, pocketing a photo from the file. Dad in dress blues, arm around a younger Vic at some charity golf outing. Smiles wide as the fairway. Betrayals DNA, twisted through generations. Elena's plea for contact came next. A letter forwarded through my attorney, scrawled on prison stationery, begging a visit. I drove up to Bedford Hills in a rental Impala, the throughway blurring past in shades of gray. She looked smaller behind the plexiglass, orange jumpsuit swallowing her frame. But that Ice Queen spark flickered when our eyes met. You won, she said, voice tinny through the receiver. Happy now? Not happy. Hollow. I traced the divider's seam. Why'd you let him frame me? We were friends. Once. She laughed. Bitter. Friends? In Vic's world? You're a tool. Lil. Same as me. He promised my boys tuition. A nest egg. When you cracked the code, he said you'd flip unless we buried you. Survival. Her eyes welled. Real this time. But you? You burned it brighter. My kids. They're with my sister now. Welfare scraping by. Guilt twisted like a knife. Her tears weren't fake. And neither was the hand I'd dealt her family. I pressed my palm to the glass. She didn't mirror it. The locks tracked me down at a low-key reading in Brooklyn. Some indie bookstore hawking memoirs on corporate sin. Mia cornered me post-Q&A. Marcus hovering like a bad shadow. We need to talk, she hissed, steering me to a cafe alcove reeking of patchouli and privilege. No apologies. Just angles. Vic's appealing new evidence. Claims you entrapped him with that USB switch. Help us quash it. We split the appeal fund. Bribery. Thinly veiled. I stared them down. The twins' faces mirrors of faded glory. Entrapment? That's rich. Coming from the duo who forged my emails. Marcus shifted. Guilty flush creeping. We were desperate.
Lil.
Vic owned us debts from law school. That startup flop.
But you.
You were clean. Or so we thought.
Clean.
The word mocked me. I leaned in, voice low. I found the originals. Your poker logs. Vic's IOUs. You laundered his first scam. Then mine. We're all stained. Mia's facade cracked.
Escaping.
Then why destroy us? We could have exposed him together.
Could we?
Or would greed have won? Like always? I walked out, their pleas chasing me into the night. The debate raging internal. Redeem them. Or let the fall claim all. Vic's missive arrived last. Smuggled via a guard at Sing Sing, parole hearing looming.
6 months in.
Typewritten. Formal, Lillian. Blood's thicker than ink. The tapes were mutual, yours and mine. That night in my office. 18? You begged for the promotion. Said you'd do whatever to seal it. I have witnesses. Testify for my character at the hearing, or it goes public. Your hero arc ends in scandal. Attached, a grainy still from security cam. Me leaning close. His hand on my knee, context ripped away. Implication damning. The twist gutted me. That meeting? I'd confronted him.
Yes.
But his comfort had veered coercive, a proposition veiled as mentorship. I'd pulled away, signed the NDA to escape, not embrace. But optics? Toxic. Public? I'd be the harpy again. Ambition twisted into complicity. The hearing loomed, a circus of its own, Vic's PR machine churning sob stories of reformed titan, donating commissary to inmates, preaching redemption in letters to the Times. I drove north, the prison's razor wire glinting under sodium lights like a crown of thorns. No conjugal, just a booth. His face gaunt but eyes alive with that old fire. Lil, he said, receiver to ear. You came. Means your family. Fuck family.
Vic.
This ends now. I slid a drive across, not evidence, but a confession. His own words from a forgotten voicemail. Buried in my archives. Admitting the frame. The forgeries. Even Dad's payoff. Appeal all you want. This leaks if you breathe my name. His laugh was a wheeze. Blackmail? From the moral compass?
Oh.
Kiddo.
Then.
Softer. I did love you. In my way. Like a daughter. That's why I had to break you. Keep you from becoming me. The words hung. A final flip. Villain to victim. Or just another lie. I stood, leaving the drive, walking out to the parking lot where snow flurried soft and silent. Sirens wailed distant, the city's pulse unyielding. Months later, parole denied, my anonymous tip on the confession sealed it. Vic rots. Elena teaches accounting in Gen Pop. The lock scrape by in white-collar purgatory.
Me?
I started a consultancy, auditing firms for ethics. A watchdog in wolf's clothing. Checks come from foundations, clients wary but willing. Dad's scholarship? Funded. Brick and mortar in Queens. Kids from the streets learning code without the corruption. But victory's Pyrrhic, laced with what-ifs. Was I avenger or architect of my own cage? The headlines faded, but the debates linger in bars, boardrooms, my own mirror. No one's wholly right, wholly wrong, just human, scrambling in the dark. And as I watch the skyline for my new walk-up, rain or shine, I wonder, did I warn them? Or just light the fuse to my soul?